Imagine sitting down to work, fully motivated, fully alert, convinced that this time you're going to stay focused. 10 minutes later, your mind is gone. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because something subtle inside your brain keeps slipping, blinking, and quietly stealing your attention without you ever noticing it. What if the real problem with focus isn't distraction at all, but the way your brain locks onto the wrong things too tightly? And what if a single, short mental practice could begin reversing that pattern in a way that lasts far longer than you'd expect? This video is not about productivity hacks, morning routines, or grinding harder. It's about a hidden attentional error almost everyone makes, why it's getting worse in the modern world, and how a surprisingly simple practice can retrain your brain to focus more smoothly, more broadly, and with less effort. Most advice about focus starts with the assumption that attention is something you either have or don't have. If you struggle to concentrate, the story goes, you need more discipline, fewer distractions, or better tools. But neuroscience paints a very different picture. Attention is not a single skill. It's a dynamic process, constantly shifting, narrowing, widening, and sometimes failing in ways we don't consciously experience. One of the most important failures is something researchers call an attentional blink. An attentional blink happens when your brain becomes so engaged with one piece of information that it momentarily fails to register what comes immediately after. You don't feel distracted when this happens. You feel focused. And that's exactly the problem. This reframes the way we think about focus difficulties, including conditions like ADHD. For a long time, the narrative was that people who struggle with attention simply can't focus. But anyone who has lived with ADHD knows that isn't true. They can focus intensely, sometimes for hours, on things they care deeply about. The issue is not a lack of attention, it's an imbalance. Attention becomes too narrow, too locked in, which paradoxically causes important information to be missed. The mind isn't wandering, it's gripping too tightly. This same pattern affects people without ADHD as well, especially in environments overloaded with information. Notifications, fast-paced media, constant task switching, and performance pressure all encourage narrow, high-intensity focus. Over time, this trains the brain into a soda straw mode of attention. You see what's directly in front of you very clearly, but you lose awareness of context, timing, and subtle changes. This is why you can reread the same paragraph multiple times and still not absorb it. Your attention is active, but it's blinking. To understand how to fix this, we need to talk about how attention actually works in the brain. Your sensory systems, especially vision, don't operate in just one mode. There is a narrow, high-resolution mode designed for precision and detail. This is what you use when you read, aim, analyze, or fixate on a specific task. But there is also a broader, panoramic mode designed to monitor the environment, detect changes, and track information over time. This mode is faster, more sensitive to movement and transitions, and crucially, less prone to attentional blinks. Most people spend far too much time in narrow mode. Modern life rewards it, but living exclusively in this mode taxes the brain's attentional circuits and increases the likelihood of blinks. The brain becomes excellent at locking on and terrible at letting go. Focus becomes effortful instead of fluid. This is where the idea of open monitoring becomes essential. Open monitoring is not about zoning out or relaxing in a vague way. It's about maintaining awareness without gripping on to any single object of attention. Traditionally, this state is associated with long-term meditation practice, but research has revealed something surprising. You don't need years of training to access it, and you don't need to believe in meditation at all. In controlled studies, participants were asked to sit quietly with their eyes closed for a short period, around 15 to 20 minutes. They were not instructed to visualize anything, solve problems, or force their mind into a particular state. Instead, they were asked to gently notice their internal sensations, their breathing, the feeling of their body contacting the chair or floor, subtle shifts in temperature, pressure, or tension. When their mind wandered, they simply brought attention back to these sensations without judgment. This practice is called interoceptive attention. Interoception is your brain's ability to sense the internal state of your body. It's the signal that tells you your heart rate, your breathing rhythm, and your physical presence in space. What makes this remarkable is not the practice itself, but the effect it had after just one session. Participants showed a significant reduction in attentional blinks when tested afterward. Not temporarily, but in a way that persisted beyond the session. This suggests something profound. By reducing incoming visual information and shifting attention inward, the brain recalibrates how it allocates attention overall. It learns to distribute focus more evenly across time instead of dumping all its resources into a single moment. The result is smoother attention, better sequencing, and fewer missed signals. This finding is especially important when we consider aging and cognitive decline. As people get older, working memory and attentional control tend to weaken. Attentional blinks become more frequent. Tasks that once felt effortless begin to feel fragmented. Early research suggests that the same interoceptive practice may help counteract some of this decline by strengthening the brain's ability to sustain open, flexible attention. What's important here is not the label. You don't have to call this meditation. You don't have to adopt a spiritual framework or a daily habit. The power lies in the mechanism. By temporarily stepping away from external stimuli and tuning into internal signals, you give your attentional system a reset. You teach it that focus doesn't have to mean tunnel vision. This connects directly to another powerful but often overlooked tool, consciously widening your perceptual field. Even with your eyes open, you can shift from narrow focus to panoramic awareness. You can still look forward while becoming aware of the space around you, the edges of your visual field, the ceiling, the floor, and the room as a whole. This doesn't blur your vision. It changes how your brain processes information. Panoramic perception is handled by neural pathways that are faster and better at tracking motion and timing. When you engage this mode, your brain becomes less prone to blinking because it's no longer overcommitted to a single target. This is why athletes, performers, and experienced drivers often describe being relaxed and aware rather than intensely focused. Their attention is wide, not strained. The deeper lesson here is that focus is not about force, it's about balance. The more you try to clamp down on attention, the more likely you are to create the very lapses you're trying to avoid. True attentional strength comes from flexibility, from the ability to narrow when needed and widen when appropriate. For people who struggle with focus, this can be deeply reassuring. It means the problem is not a broken brain. It's a brain that has learned an unhelpful pattern, and patterns can be retrained. Single, 17-minute session of interoceptive attention is not a magic cure, but it is a powerful signal to your nervous system. It tells your brain that it's safe to release constant vigilance, that it doesn't need to grip every task with maximum intensity. Over time, this can change how attention feels. Less exhausting, less fragile, more resilient. This also explains why some people feel more focused after a walk, a shower, or quiet time alone. These moments naturally reduce visual input and bring awareness back to the body. They restore balance without us realizing it. If there is one takeaway from all of this, it's that attention improves, not when we add more stimulation, but when we occasionally subtract it. In a world that constantly demands your focus, the ability to pause, close your eyes, and feel your own breath may be one of the most underrated cognitive tools available. You don't need to optimize it. You don't need to track it. You don't need to turn it into a performance. Just sitting quietly and noticing your internal state, even once, can begin shifting how your brain handles attention. The effects are real, measurable, and accessible to almost everyone. Focus isn't something you chase. It's something you allow by giving your brain the conditions it evolved to function under. When you stop forcing attention to behave, it often starts behaving better on its own, and that may be the most counterintuitive and powerful lesson of all.